have to bear with me a little bit. Talking about bravery, and I absolutely hate standing up in front of people and talking. Just to give you a bit of an outline of what I'm just going to share with you, there's going to be a few things that's going to sound a bit repetitious when it comes to when it comes to being brave, and I think one of the key things that has struck me about my experience of being in advertising is it's a fear culture. It's about no one really wants to make mistakes. No one wants to lose their job. I've been fired twice, I believe, through my career, and I've spent a lot of time on the dole with my creative partner. I spent a lot of time trying to get into advertising in two spaces of time, about a year to get in. So the fear of failure, the fear of being back on the door, the fear of people not liking your work, the fear of your peers laughing at you because you've got Turkey of the Week in campaign. All these kind of things, without you knowing sometimes, it's in your subconscious. Internally, you've got account men that are terrified of losing their clients and terrified of disappointing their creative directors. You have creative directors looking at the industry as something that they need to impress, more than actually just doing work that will impress their family, their friends, the people that they're actually trying to sell the products to. So it's a bit of for me, I've always thought it was a very strange industry to have worked in, and I've always felt like I was on borrowed time in advertising. I always thought at any minute now, someone's going to kick the door open and say, "What are you doing here? Can you get out, please?" And that's because I don't come from this industry. I originate from Clapham, which is a very different place now from when I grew up. It was a lot more, how should I say it, a lot rougher. And now it's like a different world, which I love. But I couldn't wait to move out of there when I was a kid, and now I go back there and I kind of go, wow, why did I want to leave here? It's quite cool. However, my life and the people that I was being exposed to in advertising were very, very different from me. So one of the main things that I always thought was, how do we just do work that we want to do, that wants to please myself, and I want to please my friends with what I see. My brother's a great gauge to me. He knows nothing of advertising other than what he sees, and he sees himself as an authority in that, and he will always stroll up to me and he will mention an ad, and he will sort of like say, blah, 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 did you do it? And invariably I'll go, no. And he goes, well, that's a good ad. And then I would, occasionally I would have an ad that he would have saw or would have liked, but he was always very begrudging about his appraisal and praise for me. So I always found that was, he's a good gauge to keep your feet on the ground as well. So obviously one of the main things that we're all striving for is, to be praised, hence the D&AD and all these awards. But I think it's also, it does create another barrier to allow people to be brave and confident about what they're doing. So what I'm going to start with is show you, I think probably the most famous ad that I've been involved with, which is Orange Tango. And it actually was the thing that was a gateway to everything. And it was the main thing when actually I stopped being scared, because one, it was a chance for me and Al to just do something that me and Al used to sit in the office and just laugh our heads off at nonsense. And a lot of the stuff we could not repeat to the outside world. It was very dark and very funny to us, to the point of tears. However, Tango was the first thing which was a real reflection of our personality and the things that made us laugh and the things that we would want to watch. And it was also a little, but people don't realize, it was a little stab at advertising as cause and effects advertising, i.e. you have a nice drink and something lovely happens to you, or Heineken, all these had these cause and effects kind of advertising where the product was hero. And we were talking about what happens if you drink the product and something horrible happens and something unpleasant happens. And that's where we started. And you can imagine where our imagination was going, but we couldn't share that with our creative directors. So we had to try and find a way of doing something that would be funny, palatable, and not too terrifying. And another thing that happened because of Tango, I knew that the likelihood of us getting fired again and not getting another job would be harder for people to do because we would have proved ourselves. And we knew, even at the time, this ad is either going to make us incredibly famous and secure our future in the industry, or we'll get fired and ridiculed forever. So it was a real knife-edge situation. And I think I realized it had worked. I was asleep on the train, and I overheard some kids laughing about it and mimicking the ads. And I woke up, and I remember saying to these kids, I did that. And they just looked at me as if I was completely mental. But it was, I knew it had an effect on the outside world. And that was what was always and has always been my mission. It's not to affect, it's great, I love everybody here and I love other creatives, but the real aim is to affect popular culture, is to affect the world outside. So I'll just show you that.
Hello, Tony. I think we might use a video replay here.
Super, Ralph. Let's do that.
Oh, yes, we could be in for a quintessential tango taste sensation here. Why, yes, Tony, let's look again.
Yes, Ralph. The big orange fella ran in from the left, and he gives him a good old slapping.
It just illustrates the bite and buzz of real oranges in tango.
Yes, Ralph. Super taste sensation, smashing drink, lovely.
You know when you've been tangoed.
One of the key things when it comes to achieving risky work is you've got to have people to recognize that piece of work. And I always really praised the client on this, because the client was a very, very brave guy. And he just sort of like said, like everybody was sort of like looking nervously towards what's this guy going to make of this concept. And you can imagine on a piece of paper and reading it out, a big fat orange guy runs up and slaps you in the face after having a drink. It's kind of like, you could imagine some people like going, really? And even the format at the time was quite weird. You have a commercial that's going along, that rewinds and people comment on it. Again, it's another layer of understanding. And we had an incredibly brave client who said to me, or said to us, I'm going to put my job on the line, I'm going to do this because I think this is going to be great, and I want to do courageous work, and I want to make Coke, at the time was this massive juggernaut of a company, terrified of us. And he backed this to the hilt. And I think time and time again, especially running my own agency, I'm having clients say to us, give me a tango, or give us a Haribo, or something like that. And I always kind of go, that's easy to say. One, it's never going to be like that. It's going to be another different, weird thing that we're not sure what it's going to be. Hopefully it'll be entertaining, hopefully it will sell your product. But it won't be that. But you're going to have to be brave enough and smart enough to recognize what that is when it's there. And like the reason why I'm saying this as well, because I'm a victim of this, because I've been there before and I've not recognized great pieces of work, exciting pieces of work, because something in me makes me nervous, makes me uncomfortable when I see something that I don't understand and I don't get. I want it to be something like, we all kind of go, we're up for listening to new music, but actually we get drawn to things that sounds a bit like David Bowie, sounds a little bit like, because that's in our subconscious, makes us feel more comfortable. And the next ad I'm going to show you was actually, I didn't do it, but it's a great example of admitting and understanding even within ourselves that we aren't that brave, we aren't that risk averse, because we're like, basically, what's the name? Jim and Chaz, they did Blackcurrant Tango, and they came into our office, and I was just like half listening and was raving about this idea that they had. And I must admit, I read the script, I heard it, I was like, I don't really know what this is. I don't see what's funny about it. I don't understand why it's any good. And I think this happens every now and again, I think with Guinness and a few ads that I've seen in my time. When I eventually saw the ad, I felt sick in my stomach because it was so good and so fresh and so real, and I hadn't done it. Do you know what I mean? And so you feel gutted, you feel sick. And it's all very well, sort of like applauding people and coming in and looking at their work. But actually, if I'm honest, the stuff that I'm really impressed with, I hate because I didn't do it. And but it kind of made me think at the time as well, because I was starting to get this arrogance that I felt I knew what a good idea was as soon as I saw it and as soon as I heard it. And I realized it's really hard sometimes to just see what there is. And this whole ad, this escalation of this ad, I know I'd never dreamt of coming up. And the way it's written and a sense of humor behind it, I could not have done it. And that's probably why I didn't see it for what it was when I first heard about it. So I think I've always tried to take, especially when, as a creative director, try and take a step back when I hear an idea, not just knee-jerk go, no, I don't like it, no, get out, and do something a bit more like what I would do. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes it's the hardest thing is to just let an idea breathe for a bit, think about how strong it is or what is giving me the fear about it or not the fear about it before I throw it in a bin. But I'll play this ad.
Hi, I'm Ray Gardner, spokesperson for Tango. This letter is from Sebastian Loys, a French exchange student. Sebastian says, I tried new blackcurrant tango and didn't enjoy it as much as tango's other flavors. Well, Sebastian, all I can say is sorry. We've done all we can. We try to provide satisfaction for all tango drinkers, even if you're only visiting our great nation. It's not easy. My friend Jeff here has been working on BCT for 3 years. You're an exchange student, aren't you, Sebastian? All hair gel and fancy loafers. What are your credentials, Sebastian? What drives you? When did you last get up at 4 in the morning for something you believed in passionately? We don't need you, you hear? You're one dissenting voice in a billion, Johnny French, you're that! Yes, blackcurrant tango is a charge to the taste buds. Yes, it's feisty. Yes, it's got guts. But so have we, Sebastian. Look at us! Come on then, Sebastian! Come on! Right here, right now! You and me! Come on, France! Europe! The world! I'll take you all on! I'm Ray Gardner! I drink blackcurrant tango! Come and get me!
Sorry about the quality of the picture, because you can see all of this is done years ago, before some of you were born, maybe. And the next one I was going to talk about, in terms of how brave you got to be, and like going back to seeing a good idea, recognizing a good idea, and then following through, making sure that it doesn't get watered down, it doesn't get... how can you keep it pure? Because to be honest, some of the things that we laugh about and joke about, we know would never get on air. No one's gonna put it on air. You can't swear in ads. You can't. You're in this weird advertising sterile world, but you're still trying to do stuff that's edgy and brave. And we got this brief for Apple Tango, Alan and I, and. Again, it was a running gag that we had with, and I can't mention his name because as it goes on, you'll realize why I can't mention his name. But a friend of ours, a colleague of ours, used to do a very distinctive thing at work. And he used to come, look, at home actually, and he used to tell us he would take a day off work, right, tell his wife he was ill, and he'd basically stay at home, get some scented candles on and have a wank and watch porn all day. And we used to just laugh about this. He took such pride and such enjoyment. And he booked out the day and he had his story all all there for his missus. And we used to just laugh about this. But also, his wife she's lovely, but she's very aggressive, and I have to be careful of how, I don't want to give too many clues to who she is, right? So but she was very forthright and didn't really approve of porn and stuff like that. So we always joked about what happens one day if she comes back and catches him in full flow, as we used to say, having a violent wank around his house, and his wife comes back. And so we just had this joke, and then we decided to transfer this story to Apple Tango and a drink, and somebody letting his wife go off to work and then stay at home and watch this pornographic film about the drink, which was a bit weird, but was making us laugh. And it was one of those moments where we wasn't sure if the ad was funny or the story was funny, but we shared it with our creative directors and they thought it was hilarious. And so we made this ad, but it was really funny because it was brave of our clients, of our clients and our creative director, because we had to kind of explain this story to them, and then they had to kind of go, right, we're going to make this, and we're going to put this kind of nice drink, this populistic drink, and then we're going to associate it with masturbation. And I think the ad went out on air, and the only bit that actually got censored from it, as opposed to the Tango ad that we did, the big ad, it got banned. And, you know, we had to recut the thing and have a kiss instead of a slap. But the only bit that got taken away was he puts a box of tissue down just before he watches, and they asked us to cut that out, which is I think it was just pushing it a little bit too far to what he was going to get up to. But I'll just play you this one. But I got to say, hats off to Stephen Axe, who's our creative director, who laughed as much as we did when we were describing this and thought it was as funny as we should. But I don't know, see if you find it funny, but we really enjoyed doing it.
Now, your medicine's in the cupboard. I'll be back at 6. Keep the place tidy. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Get in.
Hi, big boy. I'm going to slip down your throat. You want me, don't you? Say you love me.
I love you.
You want to taste my bubbles.
What head if it wasn't screwed on?
Don't look at me. Run away! Run away! Don't look at me!
Troubles with Apple seduction.
It is funny. I haven't seen it for ages. And what is really interesting, because we wrote it and directed it. I think it was the first thing that I was involved with writing and directing it. And I was I thought I was the right person to shoot it. And my partner at the time was feeling quite ill. So it was a bit like this, a moment like this, that you kind of enjoy it, but you hate it at the same time. Being a director is a bit like that, because I felt I really wanted to do this, and I felt no one else can bring this ridiculous bit of rubbish to life and have this and understand the humor than me. So I put myself up there to direct it, but not really knowing what the hell I was doing in terms of directing. I started running out of time. So that the end bit of that scene when she comes into the house and it goes all a bit handheld and a bit documentary and real and tragic, I loved that because it was a mistake. I had it all, you know, tracking shots also, and I had no time. So I just had to point the camera and get this going. And it made it even, and he improvised with hiding behind the sofa and feeling, don't look at me, I'm ashamed. So it was quite funny being involved with that, but the whole process of, I think, in advertising, it's brilliant because it forces you out your comfort zone, and it forces you to be brave at time when you'd rather just hide and let somebody else take the blame if it doesn't work. The next one I'm going to show, again, it's around masturbation. You're seeing a theme here. It was For Goodness Shakes. It was this unknown client, and they had no budget really to go on air. They didn't have enough money to go on air. And they said one of those things when clients go, I want it to go viral. Right? And we kind of go, yeah, we can do that. But it's kind of one of the most hardest things to do, to really, without seeding, without having a big spend of having it out there. It's one of the hardest things to do something that your friends would watch and send to somebody else, and people out there can be asked to send it on. It's really difficult, because most people, you just kind of halfway through the ad, they like turn it off, or the film, to turn it off, company. And that's why I always think content is a really hard thing to have any benefit from, because most people watching content, you don't send content on, you just watch it and you kind of, meh. Do you know what I mean? Unless it's got a purpose there. So the client said in this as well, they were quite brave. They said, we want to make a noise because we basically want to get this product on the shelf. At the moment, Sainsbury's and all that don't see us as being relevant or important, and because no one's demanding this product. So he goes, I want to create a media splash about this. I want people to talk about this, and I want the brand to become famous, even if it's banned, right? So that was like, oh, cool. And also we presented the client as well, just how brave the client was, and how, they were ready to go for it, because we had about 3 different ideas, and they were quite nice. And then this one here, that we kind of went, basically what we're saying about your target audience, you're a wanker if you don't drink this product. So, and they were like, going, cool, yeah, let's do it. So this, I thought, again, it was brilliant. And this also did exactly what they asked us to do, which I thought was amazing, which I had a mate call me up or email me this film and go, you got to watch this, this is hilarious. And I thought, I did it. I mean, I didn't come up with it. It was a very talented guy, Martin, who works at our place, that came up with this. But we shot it, and it was one of those things. Again, it was a really funny day. When you watch it, you could just about seeing people not laugh, because it's such a ridiculous, tragic thing to do when you're pretending to do this. But it was great fun shooting it. But I'll just play this. So, job done on that one. And the client got on the shelves, got distribution, and it was a great success for him. So that is when Bravery. I'm not saying I've not done stuff where things has gone tragically and horribly wrong. Like the very first commercial we was involved with, we were at Hal Henry, was the agency of the year, agency of the decade. It was the super cool place to be. And we had a very simple script, Al and I, where it was that tapping into that emotion, which we often did, is just laugh about nothing and associate that with the brand. The brand at the time was Pepe, and the idea was to just capture that little moment when you just start having laughter and you just enjoy that moment, just sitting in the sun, and then the brand, and not try too hard. Be really simple. But we were at Hal Henry, and they were like, no, you've got to push the idea. It's got to be a lot more dangerous. And then we ended up having a strap line on the end that went really dark, and it just went. I think these kids laughing, and it goes, Pepe, because one day you will die. And then it was like, all right. and then it got even more. They said, right, who do you want to direct it? And at the time, there used to be the comic strip with various, like I think Jennifer, oh God, what's her name? And Keith Allen was one of the key guys in it. And we loved Keith because he was a little bit more dangerous than the rest of them. And then our creative directors said, look, Keith's never directed anything in his life, but why don't you get him to direct it? So we got him to direct it. And like, as you can imagine, the whole thing was a disaster. And it was one of those times when it went on air, I actually would have to leave the room when it was on because it was so embarrassing. And they had a massive media spend, so it was on air all the time. And I really thought, that was one of our first things, I thought, oh my God, that's our career over. Because we had, and it kind of at that stage, I remember thinking we should try and do more safe ads. We shouldn't really put ourselves out there to be noticed. And then the key thing that's always pushed me and made me want to do better work is when you see talented people out there and talented work and people that do push the envelope and do make you kind of think, that's where the fun is, that's where the enjoyment is, that's where the hilarity is and the silliness is, and that's where then it's not that scary to fail and to fall down and to be laughed at if that's what you're striving for. And like one of the things that it sounds a bit weird, I think this is the right order, because I don't have it, no, but is William Burroughs is one of my favorite authors, and that whole era of writers, American writers like Jack Kerouac and Bukowski. And these guys were very, very edgy and at times, almost I felt like that the time when we were all coming up as creatives, and you probably know all the creators around you and who you see as your peers. And then at the time, Bukowski and Jack Kerouac, who wrote On the Road, were pushing the envelope and doing interesting work and just, experimenting with drugs and all that. And Burroughs was like a real example of someone who just no holds bar. He was he admit he was a junkie, but he was a prolific writer. He would not stop writing. And I believe he accidentally killed his wife messing about with a gun. And that even more got mixed up with his work. And he had real issues with his sexuality. And that was coming through in his work. And then, top it all, he kind of like just went spiral down. And, he wrote Naked Lunch. He had this massive manuscript. And I believe it was Bukowski and Jack Kerouac who discovered him laying on the ground and thinking, right, we've got to get this work published. And not knowing really where each chapter was, they just shoved all the work together, brought it to the publishers, and they published it. So the publishers published it, even though it was all out of sync anyway. I mean, it probably was such a stream of consciousness and madness anyway. It didn't really matter. It was all over the shop. But I remember reading Naked Lunch as a kid, and I'll just show you one little clip from it, and it just blew my mind. I was just thinking, and it just lived with me for years and years. And I always think, that's what I want to do. I want to do things that's not necessarily, I want to be more like David Lynch than, I want to do stuff that even I don't really know what it's meant to be, but it lives on and it becomes something else. But it's harder to do that when you're doing ads. But I think if you're brave and you're trying to strive for pushing yourself and to take chances, I think this is the fruits that you can really bear from that. I'll just show you this little clip. It's nuts.
I'd like you to meet a friend of mine. He specializes in sexual ambivalence.
Sexual ambulance, did you say? Oh my God.
He's called Mugwump.
Very odd. And it doesn't clear up. It doesn't become more clarity. Oh, 5 minutes, is it? All right, 10. All right, I'll speed up. So the next bit is this film should I? It's again. I came out after watching this film, and it just blew me away. And I remember it was one of the most horrific films I've ever seen in my life. And if you watch it, and if you haven't watched it, I would suggest, don't blame me if you come away feeling pretty traumatized. There's a rape scene in the middle of the film that must go on for about 10 minutes or 15 minutes. And it's horrific. And I remember I spoke to a friend about it, and I recommended it to a friend to watch it. And then she was really angry with me because I told her to watch this thing. And then, but I kind of said to her, well, rape isn't a pleasant thing, so why are you getting upset about this, that it was so horrific? And like the main thing that I felt about, the film is called Irreversible, and it actually starts at the most horrific bit, which is the end. And as it progresses, it ends at the most up bit before any of the horrible things has happened in it. But the problem is, when you watch it, I'll just show you the end bit of it. When you watch this bit, you've seen what's going to happen to this poor woman. This poor woman is pregnant, and then she's going to get near beaten to death and raped, and married to a boyfriend who becomes a bit of a Captain Ahab and tries to get revenge on the guy that kills her. He ends up getting brutalized, and his best friend ends up killing this guy. It's horrific, but you have this wonderful, idyllic end at this, that even the end, you're just watching it, and you're mesmerized by this thing, and it goes on for ages, and I'm like watching this thing and thinking, right, the end of the film, I'm kind of shaken up. I'm determined to watch it to the end. But this happens. It just goes on, and it makes you feel quite sick. And like the overall experience of it, it does not let you off the hook. And even down to the music that the guy chose for it, he designed the music to actually make you feel sick, make you feel nauseous. It was just such a brutal movie. But also, after I finished watching this, I felt so happy to be alive, and this wasn't my life. And I felt so, it wasn't just a nice little movie to watch and then recommend to a film. It really affected me. And I think this is what it must, I just think, how did they get money to do this? Who sponsored this? But I was so happy in a weird way that I experienced this film. Look at this, it just goes on. If there's anybody epileptic in this room, look away now. It just starts doing that. And like, imagine if you sat there in a cinema in silence and everybody's watching this and expecting something else to happen, and this goes on for ages. Just let you bask in this for a second. So that's the nice part of Irreversible. So if you get a chance, if you feel brave, watch the whole film. Lastly, I'll speed up because I've probably just been rambling a lot. Again, going back to clients and clients being brave, I'm going to show you a Haribo ad. And one of the key things is our client, who's brilliant. I've been working with him for about 15 years. And this sounds a bit racist, but he is very German in as much as he finds it very hard to see, like he uses this term, I can see why people will find that funny, when he's referring to an idea. And I've had a really good relationship with her. Again, we just nudged him along, and he knows he needs us to nudge him along. Anyway, we presented the last ads with Kids' Voices, it's called, and but he couldn't see it, he couldn't understand this idea. And we wrote scripts, showed him reference, he couldn't see it. And so, but he still really wanted to do it, but he just needed us to convince him that an ad with no with no children in it at all, other than the voices, is good for their product. You know, aimed at kids, but it's got these adults talking like children. And he just couldn't understand it. So we did a test, which, oh, actually, I'll show you the commercial first.
I just want to talk about this Haribo Star Mix Sweeties. I like the hearts because they make me feel love. And also I like the rings and the gold bears because it looks like it's a ring when they go swimming so they don't drown. Then look, you can make a big sandwich.
God, that's so pleasant after Irreversible. But before we did this, as a script form, Herod couldn't see that, right? So Mary Sue, I said, asked to Mary Sue, who's the writer-director on this, incredibly talented, smart girl. And I said to her, listen, we got to do a test. And she was going, how do we test this? And I said, well, get your kids' voices and get a producer, Jules, our company, and just shoot it. Just grab people in the arm. Because I was really convinced that it would be funny even as a test. And we did this test, and this was just done in the afternoon, and these guys are just people in the office just did this. And I thought it was brilliant.
If I could swap with someone, I'd say I'll give you all my love hearts for all the cola bottles because I love the cola bottles.
Fried egg and the Coca-Cola and the gummy bear. So I put this on, then pour some Coca on, then put a ring on, then I made an egg sandwich. I think gummy bears should be real, actually giant bears that actually real bears that are made out of gummy stuff, and then you've got shoot one and then you eat it.
Do you like the fried eggs? Well, I love them because they're actually really... If you imagine that you're having a fried egg in a breakfast, it's a different flavour but a fried egg.
I gave all my eggs and rings to a boy. I'll say, I'll give these to you for all your gummy bears.
I would get loads of gummy bear servants.
I would think that would be funny. If I had to love heart, my heart would beat so fast. My heart would be a bazooka, so my heart would beat so fast. It would go and then blast everyone off their feet. My favourite ones are the rings. When I ate a ring, like in Lord of the Rings, I would turn into Gollum.
So, and I always thought this was even funnier than the commercials, but it just, and once Herwig saw this, he got it, and then we got to make the commercials. But I think sometimes you got to help people, get them in the room for them to be brave themselves. So I do think, so in summary to my ramblings, I would say being brave is the most important thing in advertising, but being disciplined and trying to learn and how to be brave is one of the hardest things, because sometimes you don't recognize it in yourself, and sometimes you don't realize that you're being as constrained, and why most advertising you see out there is so sterile and so boring is because people actually don't realize no one wants to be beige, no one wants to do boring work, but invariably you do because you're terrified and you've got this cocoon around you to stop you from putting yourself outside your comfort zone.